Brr, brr, brr. So, I'm not gonna lie, Kiva is one of the tokus that I tend to watch at the end of a night. Usually when I'm kind of tired. Maybe I don't have all my faculties. Maybe I've had a fair bit of a... But, I still love it. I like to think I'm able to keep up with the plot. It doesn't make it easy because they do this thing where it's like the plot is split out across two different stories. Like, half the story takes place in the 80s, and the other half takes place in, 2008. And so that's hard to follow along with at the end of a long night. But in the 1980s, it's about Kamen Rider Kiva's dad, who's like a douchebag, womanizing violin virtuoso. And he goes around wooing ladies, and he makes the best violins in the world, and he'll eat in an expensive restaurant and pay by playing the violin. And he just leaves a trail of wet panties and broken hearts wherever he goes. And he also gets himself wrapped up in the secret war against the evil king of the vampires. Yes, vampires are real. But we don't call them vampires, we call them fangires, because we at Toei are very creative and we gotta call things more differenter names, and not the name of the thing that they are. So he teams up with this secret club of vampire hunters, and they have made a super secret Kamen Rider suit for fighting vampires called Kamen Rider Ixa, and he wears it to fight vampires, but it's a prototype, so it's not very good and it's really hard to use, and he's the only person who can use it. And the vampires are definitely bad. They use weird tentacles to drain people's life force and make them disappear. But there are also other monsters. There's werewolves and the Shape of Water guys there. I don't remember, but there's others. And they didn't do nothing. They're just trying to vibe. Yeah, sure, they kind of teamed up with the vampires, but they're not all bad. And the vampire hunters don't care, and they're genociding them. And Kiva's dad has got to make a choice. Between doing the right thing and killing vampires. And also, he is in love with the sexy vampire queen. So, hilarity ensues.
Meanwhile, in 2008,
that guy's son is a new Kamen Rider Kiva. There's ones before, but he's a new one. And he's a hot little dork who is immune compromised. And he lives in a haunted house with some manic pixie dream girl. And he's also trying to be a violin maker, but he's not as good as his dad. And his aspiration is to make a violin that's better than his dad. But he isn't a ladies' man, despite being a total babe. He's too shy and nervous, and he has a really hard time talking to people or getting out of his comfort zone. And one of his main arcs in the series is just kind of learning to not be such a big Dorcas. I haven't watched to the end of Kiva, as I said. I watch it pretty regularly, making my way through the series. I just love it so much that I really wanted to draw it for my next drawing here. And when I say I love Kiva, what I really love is Kivat. Kivat is a funny little bat who lives with Kiva, and he lives in a violin, and he likes ladies with long necks. And he tells us facts about violins and history. And I think he might also be an alarm. I think he might... I don't know if he does it, but the violin, rings out when there's a fangire around. It's a fangire alarm. It's a violin, and Kiva lives in the violin. And he bites Kiva to turn him into Kiva. And then when he's done, he goes on his belt. And he sits there. And in episode 1... there's he's fighting a vampire, and the vampire goes to stab Kiva, and it looks like he got him. But then we see that Kiva caught the sword in his teeth and saved Kiva. He, what a good Kivat. And, when he does his rider kick, which is, like, honestly one of my favorite parts of the show, is Kiva flies off Kiva's belt and goes around in the air, and he goes on to Kiva's leg, and he sticks his leg up in the air, and he's got, like, one really big boot that's all covered in chains. And he goes on the boot, and then it gets wings, and then he flies up in the air upside down, like a bat, and then flies back down onto the guy and kicks him. And it has a force of 30,000 kilograms, I have read. I don't know how that stacks up to other riders, but that sounds real big. And it leaves a big crater in the shape of a bat, which I think is funny. And I think that's the best rider kick. I mean, every rider kick is beautiful, but that's just a ton of fun. I think that's just hilarious. And I think it's really beautiful, and that's why I wanted to do this pose. I wanted to draw him doing his iconic kick. And of course I wanted to include Kiva. And I wish there was more Kiva in the show. Frankly, one of my big complaints about the show is that there isn't enough Kiva. And, he was in the first few episodes a whole lot, and I just don't see him a whole lot anymore. And I'm like, where'd he go? Where's more Kiva? But, the other thing that I find, I think, a little weak in the show is the design of the monsters. All the Fangires are stained glass themed, which I think is neat. It's a neat idea to make all your monsters have a common theme visually, but it just ends up making them all look very samey, and it's actually kind of boring. And so I don't like that aspect of Kiva. I think it's a bold move, very audacious, to give every monster a uniting theme, but it's just not fully working for me. And there are other monsters, like there's all the different types of monsters that got genocided in the past by the vampire hunters, but they didn't all die. Some of them are still alive. And part of the story of the past is to find out how the monster genocide happened, but also how those guys managed to survive. And now, in 2008, the present, they live in Kiva's castle apartment building dragon. And they hang out there, and when Kiva blows on a whistle, flute, they come to him, and they take the form of different weapons so he can fight. It's like that all the riders now in the Heisei, they gotta have the customizable different toys that you can sell to children. So they become new pieces for Kiva's suit, and he gets new powers. My favorite is the werewolf, because he's also a sword, and Kiva, the first time he summoned him and wielded him, he put him in his mouth. Like, Kiva doesn't have a mouth, even though he's a vampire. Presumably you have to bite people, but I guess not. And he had the sword in his mouth, and he ran on all fours like a dog holding a stick, playing fetch. And that was hilarious and wonderful, and he never did it again, because some producer probably saw it and was like, no, that is way too cool. We cannot have him doing that. Every single woman who sees this show will just get such wet panties. We will not be able to keep on having a country because it's going to flood and sink into the ocean. So they had to stop that. Kiva doesn't hold the sword in his mouth like a dog anymore, as far as I've seen. And I lost a lot of interest in the show after that. Not gonna lie, definitely took it down a notch for me. I want more Kiva. I want more differenter monsters, and I want Kiva to hold the sword in his mouth more like a dog playing fetch. Very, very simple requests. Oh, also, I would like Vampire Hunter Lady to do more. There's a super cool Vampire Hunter Lady. She kills vampires. She's really cool and badass and pretty. And her mom, made the Vampire Hunter Kamen Rider suit, Kamen Rider Ixa. But then Kiva's dad takes it from her. She just doesn't get, I don't know, I haven't seen her do a whole lot. She does stuff. She's better than your average John Toei female character, but she doesn't get to do nearly as much as she deserves. And I really hope in the parts of Kiva up ahead for me, I hope she gets to do something. I hope she gets to wear the Ixa suit, because it's not fair that a man stole it from her. She should get to wear it. Her mom made it. It's hers. One of the sadder aspects of Kiva is apparently the actor who acted in Kiva's part. He wore the suit and really messed up his back, because the suit has all got all these chains and stuff on it, right? And they're real chains, and they're really heavy, and it messed up his back. He's got the boot that's all covered in chains, and I really hope that boot is not as heavy as it looks. It's one big spawn boot, because Kiva's vampire spawn. And it looks like it would ruin your back. There is no way having one great big heavy boot like an Australian is going to be good for any part of your body. I really hope that guy's doing okay, because damn, I would not be able to carry around one big boot and a big chain outfit. As far as I know, though, his back is ruined. As far as Heisei series go, Kiva's kind of in this good spot of serious and silly. Kiva's really silly. There's lots of funny gags with, I don't even remember what Kiva's human name is. Doesn't matter. Kiva. Dorcas Kiva. Present day 2008 Kiva. He is a funny little dork. And, you know, there's like a lot of gags of, I think, drinking coffee. And I don't think I'm messing the Kamen Rider series up. But they drink a lot of coffee. That's a funny gag. Laugh. And, you know, then there's the horrible monsters killing people and the monster genocide and all that stuff. But it's a great show, I swear. Kiva. Great theme song. You know, bat beating heart. You know, it's a lot of fun. And the rider kick's great. One of the best rider kicks out there. Kiva's design is super cool. It's really tight, reminds me of Kuga a bit. So I guess maybe it's the red going on. And that's why I wanted to do this drawing, was to, you know, I wanted to do black and white, but it was suggested that I give it a bit of red to make it pop, and that black, white, and red really works well. Even if it's not in isolation like it is in this drawing, it really pops in the show, and the Kiva design is just a really nice, pretty design. I don't know if I can recommend Kiva enough. It's definitely one of my favorite Heisei series. I'm really excited to see where it goes. I sure hope the Dorcas present-day Kiva learns how to stop being a dork and talk to girls or whatever. And I hope his evil, sexy dad, you know, gets some integrity and settles down and marries a girl or whatever. Stops breaking girls' hearts. I'm not holding my breath. So, in conclusion, R.I.P. Kiva. I hope your back is doing okay these days. And I hope that there's more Kiva in the future. How about a new Kiva series? I would do a series as just Kiva. I would watch that. You know, I like Rohan Sensei, but how about Kiva goes to the Louvre? Wouldn't that be fun? Kiva solves spooky mysteries. Kiva thirsts after ladies with long necks. Kiva takes Manhattan. Kiva PI. Kiva in space. That'd be a good show. In conclusion, Kamen Rider Kiva is a land of many contrasts. Thank you. Oh, don't forget, you gotta like the video. You have to. You're required to like the video. I'm sorry, YouTube is telling me this now. You have to like the video. You have to write a comment about what you want me to draw you next. I'll record it. I'll make a video. I really like doing this drawing video thing. And you gotta subscribe to the channel. YouTube has also told me that's mandatory now. So you gotta subscribe and hit the notification button so you know when I make a new video. And maybe you'll see your suggestion turned into a drawing video where I incoherently talk about the series that the thing is from that I'm drawing. Because it'll be a toku thing. I didn't mention that, but it'll be a toku thing that you should draw, or that I should draw. You tell me to draw a toku thing and then I'll draw it. That's how that works. Yep. Until next time, are we doing that? Do we do that in these videos? Sure. This one we can, as a treat. Until next time, sploosh.